And I want to point to a distinction between primary trauma and secondary trauma for a moment. Um, and then also overt trauma and covert trauma. So, primary trauma is when we're directly impacted by something that's obviously traumatic. And what that means is something's happening. It could be physical, it could be emotional, psychological, and it's overwhelming our capacity to cope with it. And the reason why childhood trauma is so impactful is because children are in a situation where they can't really fight back and they can't escape, so it really imprints deeply. As adults, we may have more choices, but still, we can be deeply impacted by things that happen directly to us, being the being seeing or being affected directly by violence, or anything. That's primary trauma. Then secondary trauma is of two types, sometimes called vicarious trauma. And this is a really important one. And this comes back to the negativity bias a bit as well, because um, one form of secondary vicarious trauma is when we hear about traumatic things happening to other people. When we hear about this to one degree or another, in the back of our brain, there's a little voice going, that could have been me. And we're having the same neurochemical experience that of the person who's in a traumatic situation, not to the same degree, obviously, but this is increasing over time. Now, I do a lot of work with correctional officers and probation and parole officers, as well as the incarcerated. And in those kind of environments, and the bad things happen a lot, and everybody hears about it. And they definitely going, that could have been me because they were on the shift right before then, right? But think today about when these school shootings happen and parents, any parent with school-age children, they're going, that could have been my kid. In fact, many of them are looking at their phone and checking for text, right? So we hear about every negative thing that happens in the world today, which I think it's really important to titrate how much news we watch because I'm not so sure we were designed to be exposed to this much negative information, right? I mean, years ago, you knew what happened maybe on your block in your neighborhood, or then with newspapers, you knew what happened in your town, and then with the evening news, maybe your country, and now with 24/7 cable, we just hear about everything, right? And so, and because of the negativity bias, then we take that and we just keep spinning it. So we're all exposed to that. And so we're all being bathed in secondary vicarious trauma. And then we also pick up trauma by being around people with trauma in their nervous systems because we're empathic beings. We don't really end with the skin. We're in an energetic matrix. And so it's important for us to realize that we live in a world of trauma.